welcome, and please feel at home. So we are going to start with our media seminar on state capture with our three panelists just in front here. So I'll start by introducing our first panelist. This is Pinky Khoabane. She is a writer. She has an online blog called Uncensored. She's also very vocal on current affairs around the country to educate our people, and she's a social commentator as well. Our second panelist is Zimasa Mpemnyama. She is part of the editorial collective for the Black Opinion publication. She is also a freelance writer, and next to her, Mzwanele Manyi. He is the leader of the Decolonization Foundation. So I'm sure he does not need any formal introduction. So that is on the far right, Mpemnyama. He is the national convener of the Black Dissenters movement. He is going to be moderating our setup today with the three panelists. So without wasting any more time, and I must apologize for us starting late, as most of us were here, most of you were here by 6 o'clock. So I really apologize for the delay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over to Mpemnyama so that we can get going with things. And thank you.
Isolate. Isolate. Africa. Thanks, Comrade Mzwanele, and also to our panelists. The intention of this event by our movement, Black First, Black First, was to create a platform where Black people can engage in a space which is not captured. Because most of the forums which are out there are created by the owners of this country, the rulers of this country, and most of the voices that are loud, which are seen as legitimate, are those voices that speak for power, that speak for these owners of, the real owners of South Africa. Of course, today we as a movement also want to reflect on the banning of 19 Black consciousness organizations in October 1977. The apartheid regime had just assassinated Steve Biko, but they were not satisfied with physically eliminating Steve Biko. They had to go after his ideas as well. Because the 19 organizations, most of the organizations were related to two publications, including the newspaper The World was one of those which actually was banned by the apartheid regime. So the question becomes, why are ruling classes interested in the media? What does the media do? And if you fast track to today, within the narrative and debate of state capture, what is the role of the media? Is the media helping us to see, to understand, or is the media playing a role of justifying and naturalizing and making invisible the role of the real state captures? Can we have a conversation that helps to peel off, if you like, these layers that even sometimes I think the narrative that are created by white-owned media have captured us as well. Because remember, a narrative is a set of concepts, set of phrases, set of perspectives that assist you to understand the world. So if they create a narrative, when you explain the world using their perspective, so almost we have to jump out of the matrix to be able to understand how the world functions. So those are So today when you buy a newspaper, you are actively misinforming yourself. Similarly, a Black Opinion, where Zimasa is also part of the editorial committee, has been doing very amazing stuff. I'm not well educated in this stuff, but the number of hits or views in this online publication are really impressive. I mean, Black Opinion, I think, is about 6 months now, I don't know, something like this, about that, but already you see there's more than 1 million people who have actually gone to check at different points. So, it is not just the mainstream media which can, in a sense, influence thinking. Alternative media, we must be more aggressive. This is the point. I don't think we're sufficiently aggressive in creating alternative media. But also, there is too much money. I hope when money in the system, I hope when we talk now, our panelists will reflect on this. The budget spend of government on advertising in white-owned media is just shocking. It's too much money, which we should argue correctly should come to all the media, including encouraging deliberately the creation of black-owned media. So we must not be apologetic about this. What's our money? Why should government put money in the Sunday Times to put a little advert about a job of a director somewhere? Surely they can put an advert in Black Opinion. I mean, why not? An advert is not a political statement. It's simply saying you want a job, you must go to this place. But these guys get all the media to look at the media. So we need to start thinking of diversification of the media, but it's not need resources. But I also want to say, even without resources, the internet is there. And if we write good stories and we do good writing, then people actually will. Let me stop there. How do I run this thing today that he says this? Each of the panelists have 10 minutes, but they told me 10 minutes is not enough. So we'll allow them to speak until we feel I can't speak anymore. And then we'll say, no, stop. And then, after that, what we'll do, I will then pose a few questions to each of the panelists, and then they will react to those. And then if there's any interaction they want to have among themselves on the basis of what they have said and what they responded to the questions, they can do so. And then thereafter we'll then open the floor for interaction with the panelists. This is how we will run this project today. In the house, there are members of my movement, breakfast. Some of them from leaders from the different provinces. We welcome them. We're a movement that says breakfast, therefore we expect all black people, including those that disagree with us. If you're a black person, you can disagree with us. It's absolutely okay. We are not at war with you. We're not fighting with any black person. You can come here, share your views, you will be protected and you will be defended. But just don't harm us because we defend ourselves. That's the only time we have problems with you. I'm very happy to see that in the house there are no threats. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Mrs. Pinky to give her input, then give Zimasa, and then Mzwanele will close. Okay, thank you.
My English correct. You can't judge me for that. So thank you so much, Andile and BLF. It's exciting times. It's exciting times to be in South Africa today because you see how, especially this year, let's have decided we've had enough. We are doing our own thing, boy. We've got our own little online stuff. Blacks have attacked these racists on Facebook and Twitter, taken them to court. Mzwanele is just doing a fabulous job, taking everybody to the PP. It's fantastic, because we literally said, we seemingly are beginning to see the power that we have in our democracy. We are saying, heck, the PP is not just for Helen Zilla and her house Negroes. No. I mean, It's an institution that belongs to us, and Mzwanele is doing what most of us are sitting and doing nothing about. He's taking everybody to the PP. He's got, he doesn't stop. He takes them to the Hawks, he takes them to the NPA, and we are really marveling at this, and we are loving it. Except for a few, not a few, a number of blacks who obviously think he's bought or captured, and in fact, because we come from an alternative way of thinking. I always say my brain is wired quite differently. I see something, and I'm so cynical that, especially when I see it from the media, I think, let's read between the lines. And ultimately, I will find that the story is just what my kids call BS, So, so that's the kind of thinking we must interrogate news. Whatever it is somebody tells you, you have to interrogate it and do your own research to establish whether it is actually what it is. And I have not read newspapers in the last 10 years, even though I've written for newspapers, because I discovered long ago I'm reading nonsense. And I don't need to pollute my life with rubbish. We now know that the media is anti-black, anti-Zuma, anti-ANC. Why should I spend my time and money reading such, what I call crap? You'll have to excuse some of my language, but I think many of us are about 18 years old here. But going back to the issue of state capture, state capture, we've heard a lot about state capture since the beginning of this year. And it's simply because it's directed at one family. State capture has been in this country since 1652. When young from River got here, stole our land, raped our mothers and sisters, took everything that we have. That is state capture. They've captured this land since then. We had the Broederbond, which has captured the government, captured the Nationalist Party for their own nationalist agenda. And they've done this all the time. We have huge evidence of how the Broederbond infiltrated and created apartheid and kept us where we are today. So there is no way we can suddenly wake up this year and think, oh well, there's something called state capture. We know how a man called Johann Rupert, they've literally, written columns about this man. It is amazing that this man is one of the richest people in this country. He owns just about everything. Everything. It's simply unbelievable. You look at the media landscape. This man even owns the little university radio stations. Yes. So what comes out of those media institutions is to protect him, white privilege, and white capitalists. That's who he is. And the biggest thing, we are being channeled into forgetting the history of this country, how far we have come, and what is happening. The ANC and today's democratic institution has its own faults, but we have made movements. And we hear today, how this white media can tell us nothing has changed. And you see here and there a few blacks coming up and being propped up, and they're all over the radio stations. Who owns them? Rupert. And we are supposed to really believe apartheid is here today as we live today. Nothing has happened. The education system. What's his name? I forget him, that house Negro that works for the DA. Manyi. Yeah, Manyi. This guy comes up and says the education system today is exactly the same as during apartheid. He's the man who trends on radio, and you think, okay. Anyway, so this is the kind of information that we're infiltrated with in our news media. Anything, they go after Manyi buying a car. they go after me for maybe having a party at. We're supposed to be black, poor, and live within that realm of the olden days. Blacks who are achievers, who are doing well, are seen to be corrupt. And as the discussion on TV was a few minutes ago, you literally as a black person are suspected of being a thief. A CEO who decides, well, I've got enough money, and goes and buys a Porsche, can make it into the Sunday Times Business Times because they are suspected, and suddenly they are being investigated for how they get their money, what they are doing. Their white counterparts, no one even cares. And most of the time, those are the guys that are really raking in money and are corrupt. We have, as I said, we know about state capture. We know how the Ruperts and the dead fleeced, looted, stole money from our reserve bank, just on the eve of democracy. So Rupert and his gang, suddenly called liberals, were flying Nelson Mandela around. He was living in mansions and everything was cool. Meanwhile, they were literally stealing money from our government. I mean, it's trillions of rands that were stolen. We only have one little section of that money stolen, 26 billion rand, that we know from a CX report, which Thabo Mbeki commissioned. And this man said, this 26 billion rand can be recovered. The big question is why Thabo Mbeki didn't go after that money. The story was very, in the media in 2011 or so, when Tulima Donsela said she's going to investigate apartheid duty. And it was blazing. What emerged thereafter is that she did absolutely nothing. She protected, and who stole this money, according to this report? Absa, Sanlam, who is that? Rupert's friends, Rupert's families, Crystal's families. It's a relatives who, it's incestuous, financial incest, looting. And this story has now died. It has been left to Andile and me to put back onto the agenda, to say, where is this money? Why aren't you following this money, Ms. Madonsela? You are wonderful. You are the best public protector we've ever had. For 6 years, you've been after this money, doing this investigation. At the end of it all, she's been promising us she will give us a report. She leaves, she gives us nothing. Instead, where does she go? Where is she going to go and work? Stellenbosch with Rupert, under Rupert. And you ask these questions because that's our job, that's our role, and all of us here in today's world can be investigators, can be. I mean, it's amazing the kind of stuff I get from my blog. The other day I got somebody who came to my little inbox and said, when did she actually become an advocate? And gave me some evidence. Guess what? Instead of answering me, she called me stabbed and captured and literally called me a spy. So that's how it works. And of course, she has all these people that came, the media just comes around and they take you out, Sometimes, I'm sure all of us sitting here, you go home sometimes feeling a little bludgeoned, sometimes. Because the world that we live in, we are literally pushing and challenging these people, and they're not used to it. But that's what the role of today's small media should be about. When we talk about state capture, we know already, I've said, Reserve Bank captured already. Treasury, Pravin Gordhan, and all of Treasury, from Manuel going down to today. captured by white capitalists. You only need to see who Treasury gives money to see money goes into financial institutions run by these white capitalists who then bring it back to you at a profit. And still, when you miss one payment, they take it back. It's your money, you gave them to lend to other people and to lend to you, and you miss one little and they're on you. And who's the first to talk about this in terms of how blacks are? They can't deal with their payments and lifestyles. It's the black journalists. They got you, boom, Sunday World, front page, Sunday Sun. And you will never see a single white person, and there are many, who also have debt. You'll never read about it. That's why I say we are in a situation, a serious, very serious period in our lives, because we have all these media, and you know, on my website, and I think even on Black Opinion, there will be that graphic. You will literally cry when you see who Rupert, it's Rupert, Moorman, Stockberg, and Becker. These four men run every little media institution, somewhere, and it's just, it's like a mesh. You look at it, it's a web, and that web is captured. So these four people have captured the media, they've captured the treasury. Because let me just give you an example. For example, you know, when we talk about capture, the influence Rupert has. So there's this 26 billion rand that needs to be paid by ABSA, Sanlam, I think Nedbank, Amsco, yeah, I think it's about 4 of them. And what does Rupert do? And at the beginning of the ANC rule, Trevor Manyi used to ask for this money. He used to want this money. What did Rupert do? Gave his wife board seats in all his companies. She was a girlfriend there. Yeah. She has all these seats in all these companies of his. Later, she becomes the ABSA CEO. How could Trevor even remember to go call for that money? And by the way, on top of it, Rupert says, I'll host you at my wine farm for your wedding. How can you ask, you know, after a man has done all of this, to say, Lord, so how about that 26 billion? You can't. So he keeps quiet. Praveen comes in, keeps quiet. Now, there's a fascinating thing about Praveen, because he's portrayed as this very squeaky clean human being. It can't make sense. Why would he keep quiet and not ask for the 26 billion rand? Every day he tells us he doesn't have the money to give for students. He doesn't have money for this and that. In fact, we have to tighten our belts because, the rating agencies are going to come down on us. Like, we care about junk status. We're already junk status. Yeah. So we have all these things. And the media protects them. This is a story you will not hear about. You will not see, you know how they draw the graphics, how mamang, agileche ya mamang, yasha, you know, they can tell you right down to the toilet paper. They can draw you all that until right down to the toilet paper you use it. But they've just kind of forgotten about this, and we talk about it all the time, and they simply ignore it. So you know, the media's role is to give us information objectively, so we can make informed choices. If somebody tells you the Guptas are wrong, or Sean is stealing money, give me all the information. That's all that's required for the media to do. Be balanced, be fair. There's nothing like objectivity in the world. I always tell people, forget about objectivity. I'm here because I believe in a certain way of thinking, and it has a lot to do with where I come from. So I can't just go and be party to a book on the road union, for example, sitting around with white people. I mean, so that book, I view it from a completely us is biased. What we need to be saying is be balanced, be fair. That's all we are asking for from the media. But this doesn't happen. And we understand why. I mean, they need to protect their shareholders, they need to protect their owners and advertisers. But we should not be fooled in not reading in between those lines. Every time, I know many of you love to even send us some little snippets of what rubbish they are writing. But every time you read, you have to be able to open your eyes and say, what is the underlying story here? There's another very crucial issue in what is going on in this country. It's about how the country has been captured by the IMF and the World Bank. I mean, we literally, that's why you can't touch Praveen today, because he's friends with the rating agencies. So what happens if Praveen coughs? That's it. We can lose I don't know how many billions we lose when he's accused and he has to answer questions of fraud. And you hear, I was at a branch meeting the other day, and I hear a political leader saying, we have to be careful. When HCEOs support Praveen, we have to be careful. I said, no, I mean, that is a clear, he's their man. Even why he's in that position is because he must protect the world financial system of lending. And it is savage, that system. Once you are in, you never come out. And these are stories we will never get to learn. The IMF and World Bank and the rating agencies are glorified in our media. So in actual fact, our media goes against making us make informed decisions. And as we were saying, what actually happens is many people are informed by this, as Andile called it. You are misinforming yourself. So they give us all this information, and sadly, there's a lot of people who actually believe this stuff. You just need to be on Twitter to see the brutality on those of us who think differently. And instead of them answering the questions that we raised, we are bombarded with insults, day in and day out. Some of us take a little break, have a glass of wine, come back. Yeah, come back and fight the struggle. But basically what we are saying, comrades, the media is working against us. We need to open ourselves to more and understand exactly what is going on in our environments and deeper and read between the lines. So on that note, I'll say thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you to Sis Pinky for the beautiful presentation. As Mzwanele said, my name is Zimasa, and I think I'm very honored to be in this panel with black people who fight, and black people who don't only fight in the streets. They fight with ideas, they fight with words, and they have given themselves to making sure that black people's lives are bettered and that we think differently. So I feel very honored to be part of this panel. And I'm very sad that your brother Pete is not here, because he's one of those journalists that I admire, as a young journalist that I admire, for his fighting spirit. So yeah, today I'm here representing Black Opinion, which is a Black consciousness online publication. And I'm going to read quickly something I wrote about Black Opinion. So as the name suggests, Black Opinion is interested in publishing Black voices that deal with the subject matters ranging from media, health, sports, sexuality and gender, art, politics and current affairs, and everything in between. So we encourage people to just send in their opinions, and we with different people. So I'm part of the editorial collective, so I write as a staff writer, and I do some of their reporting as well. But we encourage other black people to send in their comments, to send in their ideas, right, so that we can see where our people are in terms of their thinking. And it's very beautiful to have seen from April to now, like the vast number of people who've been submitting articles, and some who don't submit articles, but just send like a few lines to say the work you're doing is very beautiful, I agree with it, keep going on, and that's very encouraging. So one could think of Black opinion as a Black conscious daily maverick, right? But unlike Daily Maverick or any other white mainstream news opinion source, BO is not delusional about its role in the media space and its shaping narratives. Because you find things like Daily Maverick and other news sources clamor onto this idea of objectivity and whatever, as if to say that if you are in the media, then you are not part of shaping a narrative of society and shaping the way people think about society. Because we can't ignore the fact that most of our people get their information from the news. And if the news is telling them that the Butas are the problem, that Zuma is the problem, their minds will be shifted in thinking in that particular way. So while other white mainstream news sources may try to think of themselves, and even journalists themselves, because I've worked in a couple of newsrooms, it's interesting to see how delusional journalists are about objectivity and about them not playing part in a bigger game of what it means to be alive in South Africa right now. So we are not delusional about the role that we play in the media. We are Black conscious, we are Black radical, and we don't subscribe to this journalistic nebulous idea of objectivity. We have an agenda, and it's a Black agenda.
Yes.
And now thinking around this question of state capture and about the state and capture, for me, as a Black conscious person, right, the one thing that always comes to my mind when I think of state capture is the word capture in itself and what it means for Black people. The fact that as Usis Bindi said, that we have been captured, our country has been captured, our state has been captured since 1652. And our bodies as Black people have been captured. We are not viewed as giving labor. We are the labor. We are not viewed as giving commodities or whatever. We are their commodity. And the way in which the state, our bodies, so that's why I've been thinking around this question of capture, because our bodies have been captured. They were physically captured and taken to the Americans. And us who are still here are still captured within a colonial state, and our minds are still captured with colonial thinking, right? And so, for me, it's interesting how this narrative of state capture has made the captured capturers. For instance, how can one Indian family, or how can Jacob Zuma capture a whole state or a whole country, a black man, when we think of the positionality of Black people in the world, in a white supremacist construct, how can a Black man or a Black family capture a country? How can, in this instance, the captured be capturers? So this narrative, the white narrative of making us fight ourselves and changing these things, an age-old one. I think one can have many examples about how the ruling class and how the people who actually are the ones who are controlling things change narratives. So it's white people who are controlling the narrative. It's white people who are controlling the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's white people who are controlling the economy. It's white people who have captured this country. And by virtue of them capturing the country, they have captured us as bodies, they have captured our minds, and therefore they have captured the media as well, and the journalists, and the people who are commentators, and the people who are publishers. This whole, like, the thing that frustrates me is how we are made to think of to reduce our problem to just two families, when our problem is so much bigger and so larger, right? And yeah, and I also wanted to comment about the journalistic practices associated with state capture, like ideas of narratives and how they are skewed to benefit a white supremacist, capitalist, imperialistic, patriarchal logic of state capture. So, working within, because I've worked in, as I said, I've worked in a couple of newsrooms, and recently I worked for a financial news, like a financial news agency. And it's very interesting and very sad seeing how journalists and editors think around the question of state capture, and how even before they go to get the story, there is a narrative that's there already about what we want from the story. Mm-hmm. Even the questions, in the ways that they are structured in a way that says we want to hear certain particular answers. And it was interesting for me today to see the story of the Guptas and how they wrote to Mzwanele about how they are tired of them always sending them like questions that are leading questions that, like, it's like Baba said, any questions J, Baba said it because Bafuna, like, clear and honest answers. Baba said it like, because Bayaz and Baba already. And yeah, I prepared something to write, but I think I'll speak on my experience as a journalist, because I'm a very young journalist, right? And I've been in the media space for like 3, 4, 5 years. And most of the time I've been an intern, because black people never get hired. The only way you can get into a news agency if you're young and you're black and you're a woman is if you are an intern. And they'll give you this lie of, no, you need to work your way up, blah, 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 blah. And then they get like stupid white journalists who just go up the ladder just like that, you know, and you want to say, we're senior journalists, at the same time. But anyway, so I've worked as an intern a lot, and it's always been interesting because the interns are scattered, right? No one gives a shit about interns. So when you're an intern, it's interesting because you're like a fly on the wall. No one gives a damn about you. I'm sorry, I swear fucking word. But no one gives a damn about you. So you basically like a fly in the wall, especially if you're a black conscious person and you see the race dynamics playing themselves out. Firstly, when you enter the newsroom and you're seeing that the managers, the editors, and all these people are white and they are male. They are the ones who make the editorial decisions to say, well, we are going to publish this, we are going to do that, who write the diary in the morning to say that's for this story and for that story and for the other thing, right? And sometimes journalists can pitch stories and say, I want to work with this and that and that and that. And sometimes they get shot down, depending on what it is. And seeing those race dynamics come into play, seeing how young people are treated, seeing how I was having a conversation with Zimasa, who's also a journalist, but I won't say from where, who's also a journalist, and we were talking about Fees Must Fall and how an editor came and said, why are we giving these hooligans airplay? These kids are thugs and blah, blah, blah. Like, we're using all sorts of racist imagery, right? Because someone doesn't have to say kafir in order for you to see that they are being racist. You can see in the words that they use. And you can also see this in the stories that they write and the language that they use. For instance, a person like President Jacob Zuma, there's a lot of racist undertones and imagery that's used when they are speaking about him, especially concerning his relationships with women and all of that, right? So there's the underlying tone, there's a sexualized idea of the black man with the raging phallus and the raging penis that's just ready to fuck anyone. That's how they speak about him, and that's how they think of him as a black man, right? And yeah, it's a very interesting thing to see. And I think concerning state capture, we, as black people, we must understand that white supremacy has an invisible hand, which has even approached Luka now because Zuma is doing all these other things and they're getting uncomfortable, right? But it has an invisible hand. And I own this place, I own the narrative here. And so it's important for us to think through And that's why uncensored is important. That's why black opinion is important. So that black people can be able to find refuge somewhere and be able to say, like a media kilombo of some sort, you know, to be able to say, this is a space where I trust these people can think in a black conscious way and that their ideas are centered around ideas of making sure that black people get their land back, black people get their dignity back, and black people get, you know, get to... Okay, and what I'm going to finish off by saying is that I'm thankful as a journalist to have worked for Black Opinion, because it's tiring working in a space like a traditional white newsroom, like I've done for the past 4 years. It literally drains you. And I remember I was talking to my partner once, and I wanted to quit my job, and he was like, no, you can't do that. But every time when I come home, I'd be because of the work that you have to do, the lies you have to tell to your own people every single day. And so I'm thankful for a publication like Black Opinion, because I get to be myself and I get to speak in my own voice, and I get to interact with other black people who are thinking in the same way that I am thinking. So it's a form of a refuge, etile, for me. And so, lastly, so yeah, for me, I think it's important. The work that Uncensored and Black Opinion are doing are very important for black people. And I think they need our support. And yeah, I'll just end it there. You can
Good evening, everyone. Now, when we had such two powerful speakers, what's there to say after this? I just want to recognize in the crowd here one of my colleagues from the other organization that participate in the Progressive Professionals Forum, which I would encourage all of you to be members of that institution. At the back there, was a second row from here, we've got Temaga's Nyaga with the husband. Thank you. Just to recognize the social, give it back up when you want to hit you. Because you see, for us in the Progressive Professionals Forum, we back an organization which some of you have got issues with, the African National Congress. We're proud members as it were. But we love the BLF as well in the same